The power is out. Cell phone signal is gone. A battery-powered radio is your last hope of learning what to do and where to go. If your local FM stations are gone as well, you might want to try to listen to airplanes, ships, or ham radio communication around you. Or you could tune into faraway shortwave stations from the other side of the world. A wideband radio receiver is an essential item in your emergency kit. I've been sent this TR110 by Retekess for review. I was going to say no thanks at first until I saw that it has one specific feature that makes this a much more interesting little radio. But let's first take a look at the hardware. This tiny handheld receiver has a built-in telescopic whip which is terrifyingly thin at the end. It uses a clone of an old Nokia battery, which is easy to find replacements for should the need arise. And it conveniently charges to USB-C, although only with 5-volt cables, not power delivery. The design reminds me of the good old days of miniature Sony electronics, with its elongated buttons, function labels, and a jam-packed old-school LCD display with interesting icons, and even an amber backlight. The case feels slightly too light and plasticky, but it's solid enough. The speaker sounds tinny. It's good enough for talk radio or communications radio, but not very pleasant for listening to music. You can plug in headphones though. I think the button layout is fairly intuitive, and I figured out the most common functions just by pressing buttons. Which is a good thing, because the manual isn't very easy to read. It even has the scroll wheel on the side for tuning into frequencies, which is nice. Although don't scroll too fast, as it gets confused then. Surprisingly, this radio also has a built-in thermometer, and it displays the current temperature on the standby screen. There are plenty of these kinds of small, wideband receivers available, but most of them I think are kind of boring. There are some though that can receive SSB, and this is one of those. But what is it about SSB that makes it more interesting? There are three main types of modulation: FM, AM, and SSB. Modulation is how the audio is put into the radio frequency transmission. Both the transmitter and the receiver needs to be set to the same type of modulation for a signal to be received correctly. And since not all radios can receive all types of modulations, this limits what you can receive even if the radio covers the same frequencies. FM is short for frequency modulation. It's commonly used on VHF for music and talk radio at line-of-sight range, and you know it from listening to music in your car. AM is short for amplitude modulation. It's commonly used on shortwave, which has a much longer range, and it's typically used for talk radio. SSB is short for single sideband, and it's basically half of an AM signal, without the carrier. It's typically used on shortwave for communications radio. That includes long-range, airplane, maritime, military, and ham radio. But it's also used by weird, mysterious number stations and other oddities. Since FM is commonly used on VHF and AM is commonly used on medium or shortwave, this has created the misnomer of calling these the FM and AM bands. But all modulation types can be used on any frequency. For instance, AM is also used for airplane communication on the VHF band. And FM is also both used in the wideband version for broadcast stations, as well as a narrowband version for communication like on handheld radios. Unlike regular VHF and UHF signals, which are only line of sight and thus has a limited amount of range, ultimately because of the curvature of Earth, shortwave signals, that is frequencies below 30 MHz, will bounce off the ionosphere and be reflected back down to Earth again, sometimes several times over. This means that you can receive signals on shortwave from the other side of the planet, even when all other infrastructure has failed. To get good shortwave reception, you will need a longer antenna than the built-in whip. There is a plug to connect an external antenna, But you can also just clip on a long wire to the telescopic whip and hang it up outside as high and clear of surroundings as possible. You can cycle through the different bands that this radio can receive by pressing the band button. Besides the obvious commercial FM broadcast reception, you can also get AIRBAND, CB radio, VHF, UHF, as well as NOAA weather if you're in the US. And then it gets medium wave as well as shortwave. When you've chosen a band, you can quickly move through some default frequency presets by pressing the mode button. To change the settings shown in the top of the screen, press the Sets button to cycle through bandwidth, squelch, attenuator, and finally modulation. While the icon is flashing, you can use the mode button to change the value. Interestingly, when you go into SSB mode, you get a loading screen for a second or two. The radio saves the modulation setting for each band, but this also means that you get the same loading sequence each time you switch to the shortwave band if it's set to SSB. By default, SSB is upper sideband, but you can press an additional time on the modulation button to get to lower sideband. The step button sets how fast you move when pressing the tune up and tune down buttons. If you hold one down, it will search for a strong signal. You can also use the side wheel to tune, and if you do, you can set the little marker icon at a number with the step button to set what number you're scrolling through. This radio has the same annoying problem as many others of this kind of small wideband receivers, where every time you move past 1 MHz, the audio is muted for a second. This makes it a bit frustrating to try and find SSB signals. On each band you can save 100 presets, and this is done by holding the memo button while tuned to the frequency you want to save. I've put in some of my local amateur radio repeaters, which it also receives fine, although sometimes it feels like the squelch is a bit slow to open. This isn't the most sensitive SSB receiver, and it is a bit finicky to use. But it is very small and it covers a lot of useful frequencies, and the battery life is excellent. If you haven't already got a small portable shortwave receiver like this one, you should look into them. I hope I've given you a small insight into what the Retekess TR110 is all about.